Yeah, it's been quite a while since I've made these videos, and by it's been quite a while since I made these videos, I mean just how I used to make them without any sense of expectation. Like, this has to be this, and maybe this is where I should be applying my train of thought and so forth, but just basically back to it being um, this canvas where I just sort of throw my thoughts back at myself for later reflection and so forth. And yeah, I do feel like that's where my mindset is at the moment. That's how my train of thought is at the moment. Just do it like I did before. The things that I'm passionate about, other things that I should talk about, the perspective that I have, I should be unapologetic about because that's the perspective that I have, and the knowledge that I've accumulated. Um, I put it out poetically, but it has a sound sort of background to it, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I was a bit nervous to sort of make these videos. There was that sense of, I'm making these videos, and what if someone that knows something actually sees it? So it was basically self-esteem and yeah, as well as sort of trying to make an impression, which isn't me, right? So eventually when I started the videos, I would get into my usual self where I just, but at the beginning there was always that factor of, impression. So, I'm not, that's not the way I'm feeling right now. So I'm starting off my thinks as exactly what they are, my thinks, most of them based off of my observations and my evaluations of my immediate surrounding, as well as the information that I gather from the broader surroundings. Um, it's something that I read, and it was something that inspired. It really inspired me, and at some point, like feedback that I would get, mostly it was from strangers, was this notion of shut up because you're not qualified to speak up, or shut up, um, you're not in the position to speak about certain things or voice your opinion, albeit your opinion is probably, it gets uploaded to my YouTube account anyway. So, you know, but I took the negative feedback and I didn't know that it was strategic. It was basically sort of like a shut him up kind of thing. Um, yeah, but it's surprising, how much something that I think was just nothing from a nobody becoming something that bothers somebody's, you know. So it was all about the thing that I've been wrestling with for the past couple of years, and that was academic achievement. Academic achievement, as we are taught, is excelling in academia, of course, having really good grades and passing and going to higher tertiary institutions, having really good grades and passing and getting your degree, now you were someone. Now you were someone because now you have a degree certified by whichever institution that you were at, right? So that sort of becomes that highlight of people. Like, I actually graduated, right? Now, I didn't mind about this because that wasn't the way I viewed education, but it was hammered to me enough times that I sort of started to reflect on myself and have this negative feeling like, wow, did I actually fail in life by not graduating, by not upholding with the standards that the general public views as success when it comes to academics and so forth. Now, today, like I said, why I feel so liberated in my thinking is I got to sort of reflect on my childhood. I was a conforming child, as in I listened to my elders and followed their instructions and basically followed the routines that they told me was life, going to church and so forth. But afterward, I would always have questions which were viewed as taboo. And I'm talking about when I was around 5, 6 years old. Um, Rukwangari, I could read very early on, so especially the short books of the Bible, because there were always books based on the Bible in Rukwangari. And I used to read these books, and I always sort of came to this point where I would ask myself, like, why is this? Why can't it be like this? Wouldn't it be better if it was like this? Wouldn't it be easier? These were not the right things for a child to ask. When I was eventually moved uh, to my dad's in Okahanja, it was a different environment for me. I came to this majority white school that used Afrikaans, and I was this black kid who came from Rundu, which was basically viewed like a village, and I was lost. I could talk English, but and I had to teach myself English, by the way. This is where shows that were viewed as annoying and irrelevant, even by myself at the time, come in handy. I learned English from these informative educational shows. So when I got here, I was 9 in Okahanja, and I was fluent in English. And this wasn't the medium, because the school where I was at, it was about Afrikaans. You have to do most of the subjects in Afrikaans apart from English, of course. So I was the weird kid out again, and there were the racial undertones that the kids displayed. For example, if I accidentally touched a classmate, they would sort of start cleaning themselves up because I have made them dirty. I have made them dirty because I have a black skin. Most of us were kids at that time. I was 9, they were like 10. But, the child learns from the parent, and the child learns from the peers. So, when I reflect on this, I can already sort of see the racial undertones and how they are developed from a young age. But the nice thing is that I learned Afrikaans fairly quickly. I guess because, playing with the neighborhood kids and speaking. So, within like a month and a half or something like that, I could talk English and Afrikaans. And just further along the line, I started to read Afrikaans, And another hurdle that I faced was we had to write in cursive. It was a must, and I didn't know how to write in cursive, so I sort of just started to make it up, and by looking at the other kids and seeing how they do it, and I was able to like copy that. But eventually the teachers found out that because my K was straight, and then I would write cursive, so they were like, yeah, you can't really write cursive, can you? I was like, nah. So they gave me like a sort of like a private assignment thingy that had cursive in it, and I had to train, do this for a long time and so forth. But what I noticed was how I was profiled immediately, how I was set aside immediately, even by the most good, well-meaning adult supervisors who were the teachers at that time. The undertones to me on reflection right now were pretty obvious. When I was in grade 5, me and most of the kids have become friends. I could run really fast and stuff. And we were basically cool. Although a lot of the things that were said before, baboon, you make me dirty, whatever, and along with the move, um, that life-changing move, it and that it sort of it makes it something that's memorable, because at the time I felt really bad. I wasn't where I wanted to be, and here was this weird environment with these weird people. So by grade 5 I befriended more people, and I was basically cool. More black kids started to come to the school, and the rest is history. Um, but what this puts into perspective for me is how we view education as a whole. I basically always think of education as an experience, an ongoing experience. Like most people will be like, I graduated, I found my degree, finally I'm far away and from the institute. Now I can go find a job and yada yada yada. But if you ask them like, what was the highlight of your education, most of the time they would speak about their life experiences outside academia, right? Because it's sort of like a must to go to college or university and get your degree, because it makes you into a someone. And if you don't, then you're nobody. You're undermined intellectually and so forth. You shouldn't talk because you don't have the sort of like permit, I can call a degree or diploma, certificate, whatever, to talk. And this isn't how I viewed education. I always view education in terms of what I want to learn from it. What I want to learn from it. And I think that choice, the ability to choose what I deem valuable as opposed to what society deems valuable, should be a highlight characteristic when it comes to education. It's like, if you're being educated, you have to be educated based on what you value about that education. Now, a lot of times, obviously, in education, you have to go through even the subjects, modules, and stuff that you don't necessarily like. But the experience of education uh, as a whole would be to make it seamless. And as an example, I'll finally put it out there. Politics Watch Namibia group on Facebook. I learned a lot, right, through input. Like, I would basically post something to see what the response was to what I posted, to the idea, It was basically like research, and when we debate, I would sort of try to sum up uh, the person's characteristics in terms of their character, like what they embody personally, what they view personally, and why. So there were a lot of times where I might have seemed like I personalize a debate more than I should, but this was basically just to figure out the different sets of mindsets. Because when I know the different mindsets, I know um, what the end goal is for one person, and what my end goal was most of the time was to figure out why this was the end goal of these certain um, persons. So as I debated, I was learning, and a lot of times I would have to do research, right? I would have to do research and all of that stuff. Um, I did a lot of research beforehand, so most of the time it was just like going back into my archive. But this was really good because I could look at what I taught myself from a different perspective, and I could then have someone else question it. When they are questioning it, I have to see the answer, or I have to find the answer. And if it's wrong, or if it's somehow contradictory, then that would be a good thing, not necessarily a wrong thing, a bad thing. Being wrong, most people view being wrong as a bad thing. I thought like being wrong is really good, because if I'm wrong, I can then be corrected, right? I stopped being I stopped engaging in it a lot more when folks that I offended started to follow me around in real life and start judging my character, and they were just assassinating me characteristically, and to an extent where they came to my family, and they did do harm, some of them. So I basically moved away from that. It was very disheartening, because this was a platform where I could sort of see what have I learned, why have I learned it, is it substantial in terms of to what I can give out to a community. And the other part is about how the individualistic views, because that's most of the time I view things in terms of individual. Because when I size up an individual, I sort of put them in certain groups. Now, those groups are most of the time consistent to each other. But the thing is, I know I might just be hard-headed about this. Most of the time, certain ideologies, certain ideologies are based on upbringing. Like I said about my childhood, and the way the kids were, it's based on upbringing and what is perceived as the right way to grow, right? So most of the time this is wrong, and it's applied into our educational institutions, as in how you want kids to grow, how you want kids to behave, and this makes for a very analog learning environment. And in the digital age, in the age where new discoveries are being made, where continuous research is being done, it takes away from the core values of education. Education is about continuous learning, right? So most people think I get my degree and I graduate and that's it, that's education, but it's not. Whatever qualifications someone had, let's say in the 1700s, isn't exactly the same as the qualification that they would have now. And this is because education is something that goes on continually. As society adapts to technologies, as society adapted to electricity, all of those things, should be embodied in education. So educational systems should be very flexible in that they should adapt to all sorts of methodologies. And why I used PWN as an example was because of the broad and different perspectives that I viewed, that I sort of witnessed from individuals, right? So, it would be getting the opinion that in real life would have been kind of impossible for me to approach that person and discuss those things with them. But here I was presented with an opportunity to, right? So, let me say the theme of this thing was to thank Politics Watch Namibia for enlightening me in ways that I didn't know. Um, it was valuable. It was valuable. It helped, it challenged me, which is what I like about it. It challenged me to think harder. It challenged me to put up certain structures in my thinking and sort of see how I can apply them until I could sort of at most times come up with a universal model. Um, it was, yeah, it was flattering, to have my contribution acknowledged, even by just one person, one stranger who says, "Wow, John, thank you for this." That to me meant a lot. And, those were the things that drove me. It was passion and compassion. It's not only about, like, I was one of the people that hated debating newspaper articles. Right? Most people put up a newspaper article and I would cringe. Most people discuss it. I hated that because it's pretty unoriginal, right? I viewed these newspaper reports as just that, reports. They lacked review and accountability on the part of the reporter. When the reporters, most of them write, some of them, I guess, they write their stories, but they don't really think about the implication of what they have written. And to me, that's vital. I think writers that I appreciate sort of see um, what impact whatever it is they have written gets, as opposed to just grabbing attention so that they can have more newspaper sales. It looks up at, when we um, put this out there, what will it do to the people's thinking, right? How would people view this, and what would be the feedback that the people get? I don't see that with most writers, especially back then. So, I dreaded it when someone, was debating about newspapers. It was like, so what? Newspaper? It was sort of like a think tank for me where I would have these participants who are brilliant, who could challenge me on whatever it is we were debating at that time. And it was wonderful, it was peer based debate, right? Yeah, then the knuckleheads came in who get offended to the point where they, want to follow you around in real life and make sure that you feel how they felt when you know, platforms, right? So, aside from the bad, there was tremendous good that came from it. And, I want to thank Politics Watch Namibia for being part of the the things that sort of changed my perspectives on a lot of things. Like, I was homophobic, um, because that was the environment that I grew up in. But after PWN and, talking to a lot of people who are openly gay and stuff, they're just people, right? They're just people. And that's actually how I've always been. The whole homophobic thing is always a front, to fit in. But, that also went away. I became who I was, although it alienated me against my so-called real friends. And I say so-called because they are fake as fuck. Um, but it exposed me to people who weren't afraid to be real, right? And if my thinking clashes with a friend or whatever, I would have expected for them to understand it. But I got the opposite, right? So it's whatever, man. That's in the past. I have no grudges, People live their lives. But yeah, this thing was to honor Politics Watch Namibia group on Facebook. Thank y'all. Salute.